The coffee cup slipped from Elena's fingers before she even felt herself falling. One moment she was standing beside the corner booth, pen in hand, taking an order from the silver-haired man in the expensive suit. The next, the world tilted sideways and the diner's checkered floor rushed up to meet her. She heard gasps, the clatter of dishes, someone calling her name from far away. But what she remembered most was the man's face hovering above her as darkness pulled her under. Those concerned blue eyes that seemed to see right through her, past the forced smile and the practiced words, down to the exhaustion that had been eating away at her bones for months. She didn't know it then, but that moment would change everything. Not just for her, but for him too. Sometimes the people we least expect hold the keys to our salvation, and sometimes our breaking point becomes someone else's moment of clarity. "Where are you watching from today?" When Eleanor opened her eyes, she was lying on the worn vinyl couch in the diner's back office, and Martha was pressing a cool cloth to her forehead. "You scared us half to death, honey," Martha said, her lined face creased with worry. Elena tried to sit up, but her arms felt like they were made of paper. "I'm fine," she whispered, though they both knew it wasn't true. She'd been saying she was fine for 6 months now, ever since the doctors told her that Lily needed a new heart. The diner had been Elena's second home for 12 years. She knew every crack in the linoleum, every customer's usual order, every way the ancient coffee maker could break down on a busy morning. She'd started here fresh out of high school, a scared 19-year-old with a baby on the way and no ring on her finger. The owner, Joe, had given her a chance when nobody else would. Now Joe was gone, and his son ran the place. But Elena stayed because it was steady work, and because the regulars had become like family. They'd celebrated when Lily took her first steps in the corner booth. They'd helped with school supplies and birthday cakes over the years. They'd been there through every milestone, but none of them knew how bad things had gotten. None of them knew that Elena hadn't eaten a real meal in 3 days because every dollar needed to go toward Lily's medical bills. Insurance covered some of it, but there were always more tests, more appointments, more medications that Lily needed to stay strong enough for the transplant list. Elena had taken on double shifts at the diner and weekend work at the grocery store stocking shelves. She slept 4 hours a night if she was lucky. She'd sold everything she could, her mother's jewelry, her old car, replacing it with a rusted bicycle. She'd moved them from their small apartment to a single room above the laundromat, where the rent was cheaper, but the walls were thin and the heat barely worked. "You need to see a doctor," Martha said firmly. But Eleanor was already shaking her head. She couldn't afford a doctor's visit for herself. Every penny was counted, allocated, stretched as far as it would go. "I just need to eat something," she lied. "I skipped breakfast, that's all." Martha didn't look convinced, but she went to fetch some soup from the kitchen. Elena closed her eyes and thought about Lily, about her daughter's sweet face when she'd left her at her neighbor Rosa's apartment that morning. Lily was 11 now, small for her age because her damaged heart couldn't pump enough oxygen through her growing body. But she was brave, braver than Elena could ever be. She never complained about the pills or the doctor visits or the fact that she couldn't run and play like other kids. She just smiled and said, "It's okay, Mama, I'm okay." Through the office door, Elena could hear the lunch rush starting. She needed to get back out there. They couldn't afford for her to lose this job. She pushed herself up, ignoring the way the room swayed. But before she could stand, the door opened and there he was, the man from the corner booth. Up close, she could see the fine lines around his eyes, the expensive watch on his wrist, the custom tailoring of his suit. Marcus Webb. She knew who he was now. She'd seen his picture in the newspaper when he donated a new wing to the children's hospital. "Please don't get up," he said gently. His voice was deep, worn smooth like river stones. "I asked if I could check on you. I hope that's all right." Elena felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry about your lunch order." "I'll get someone to—" "That's not what I'm concerned about," he interrupted. There was something in his expression she couldn't quite read. Worry, yes, but something deeper. Something that looked almost like recognition, though they'd never met before today. "You need medical attention. I've called my personal physician." "He's on his way." "No, I can't. I don't have—" Elena stammered, panic rising in her chest. She couldn't accept charity from a stranger, especially not someone like him. The bill alone would probably cost more than she made in a month. "It's already done," Marcus said quietly. "Please, let him examine you. No charge, no obligation. Consider it a concerned citizen looking out for another. My driver will take you to the clinic." Martha returned with the soup, and her eyes widened at the sight of Marcus Webb standing in their cramped office. But it was the look on Elena's face that made her set down the bowl and take her hand. "Honey, maybe you should let him help," Martha said softly. "Just this once." Elena wanted to refuse. Pride was sometimes all she had left. But as she looked at their worried faces, she felt something inside her crack. She was so tired of carrying everything alone, of pretending she could handle it all, of being strong when she felt like she was made of glass ready to shatter. Maybe just this once she could accept a kindness. Maybe just this once she could let someone help. Dr. Harrison's clinic was nothing like the crowded emergency rooms Elena was used to. The waiting area had soft leather chairs and warm lighting, and the receptionist offered her tea while Marcus sat quietly beside her. She hadn't expected him to come along, but when she'd tried to protest, he'd simply said, "I'd like to make sure you're all right if that's okay." Something in his voice made her agree. The examination was thorough. Dr. Harrison, a kind man with gentle hands and sharp eyes, checked her blood pressure, listened to her heart, asked questions she didn't want to answer. When had she last eaten a full meal? How many hours a week was she working? Was she experiencing dizziness, fatigue, chest pain? Elena answered honestly, too exhausted to keep up the pretense anymore. She watched his expression grow more concerned with each response. "Mrs. Torres," he said finally, "when did you last have blood work done?" "It's Miss Torres," she corrected automatically. "And I don't remember. Maybe 3 years ago?" He made a note on his tablet. "I'd like to run some tests. Your symptoms suggest severe malnutrition and possibly anemia. You're running on empty, and if you continue like this, you're going to end up in the hospital." Or worse. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back. "I can't afford tests." "You don't have to worry about that." Marcus's voice came from the doorway. She'd forgotten he was there. "Please, let the doctor do his job." She wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she nodded and let the nurse draw her blood. While they waited for the results, Dr. Harrison left them alone in the examination room. Marcus sat in the chair across from her, and for a long moment, neither of them spoke. "Why are you doing this?" Elena asked finally. "You don't know me." Marcus was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. 2 weeks ago, my son David was in a car accident. He's 17. He was driving home from soccer practice when a drunk driver ran a red light. He paused, and Elena could see him struggling to continue. David's been in a coma ever since. The doctors say there's no brain activity. They say he's gone even though his heart is still beating. Elena's breath caught. "I'm so sorry." "They've been asking me about organ donation," Marcus continued, staring at his hands. David had marked himself as a donor on his license when he turned 16. He was that kind of kid, always thinking about how he could help people. "But I can't," his voice broke. "I can't let him go. I know it's selfish. I know there are people waiting who could live because of him. But he's my son, my only child. His mother died when he was 5, and he's all I have left in this world." Elena understood grief. She understood the desperate need to hold on to someone you loved, even when you knew you couldn't. "That's not selfish," she said softly. "That's love." Marcus looked up at her and she saw tears in his eyes. "When I saw you fall today, when I saw everyone rushing to help you, I thought about David. I thought about how someone I'd never met could need help, and I'd have the power to give it if I could just find the courage. Then Dr. Harrison told me you were working yourself to death, and I had to know why. What could be worth that?" Elena took a shaky breath. She hadn't planned to tell him, hadn't planned to tell anyone, but something about his honesty, his pain that mirrored her own, made her want to share the burden she'd been carrying alone. "My daughter Lily has a damaged heart. She's been on the transplant list for 6 months. Without a new heart, she won't live to see her 12th birthday. Everything I do, every hour I work, every meal I skip, it's all for her. To keep her alive long enough for a miracle." The silence that followed was heavy with understanding. Two parents, both facing the unimaginable, both willing to sacrifice everything for their children. If this moment touches your heart, if you've ever loved someone so much you'd give anything to keep them safe, please give this video a thumbs up. Dr. Harrison returned with the test results, his expression grave. Ms. Torres, your blood work shows severe nutritional deficiencies, anemia, and your electrolytes are dangerously imbalanced. You need to be admitted to the hospital immediately. I can't, Elena said automatically. My daughter has a heart condition, Dr. Harrison finished, glancing at his notes. I saw it in your medical history. She's on the transplant list at Children's Memorial, correct? Elena nodded, confused about how he'd accessed that information so quickly. Dr. Harrison exchanged a look with Marcus that Elena couldn't interpret. Ms. Torres, what's your daughter's blood type? O negative, Elena said. Why? The doctor's face went pale. He turned to Marcus, and Elena saw something pass between them. Something that made Marcus stand up so quickly his chair scraped against the floor. What is it? Elena demanded, her heart racing. What's wrong? Marcus's hands were shaking. David is O negative too, and his heart... He couldn't finish the sentence. Elena felt the world tilt again, but this time she wasn't fainting. This time she was understanding something impossible. Something she couldn't let herself believe because hoping for it would break her if it wasn't true. The ride to Children's Memorial Hospital happened in a blur. Marcus insisted on driving her himself, and neither of them spoke during the 20-minute journey. Elena's mind was racing with possibilities she didn't dare voice. O negative was the universal donor blood type, rare enough that matches were precious. But a heart transplant required more than blood type compatibility. There were tissue matches, antibody tests, size considerations. The odds of David being a match for Lily were astronomically small. She couldn't let herself hope. Hope was dangerous when you'd already lost so much. Rosa met them in the hospital lobby, Lily's small hand clutched in hers. Elena, Martha called and said you'd collapsed. I brought Lily as soon as... She stopped, taking in Elena's tear-stained face and the well-dressed stranger beside her. What's happening, Mama? Lily's voice was thin and worried. She looked so small in her purple sweater, the one with the heart patch Rosa had sewn on to make her smile. Are you okay? Elena knelt down and pulled her daughter close, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. I'm okay, baby. I promise. But something's happened. Something that might be... She couldn't say it. Couldn't put words to the fragile hope blooming in her chest. Marcus crouched down too, so he was at Lily's eye level. Hi, Lily. My name is Marcus. I'm a friend of your mom's. Is it okay if we go talk to your doctors for a little while? Lily studied him with the solemn wisdom of children who've spent too much time in hospitals. Are you going to help my mama? She works too hard and she doesn't eat enough. I tell her all the time, but she doesn't listen. Marcus's smile was gentle but heartbroken. I'm going to try to help both of you, if I can. The next 2 hours were the longest of Elena's life. Dr. Patel, Lily's cardiologist, ran tests on David's medical records that Marcus had sent over. The transplant coordinator was called in. There were blood samples and tissue typing and conversations in medical terminology that Elena only half understood. Marcus sat beside her the entire time, and at some point their hands found each other, two parents clinging to each other in the storm. Rosa kept Lily distracted in the playroom, reading stories and doing puzzles, keeping her away from the tense waiting and desperate hoping. Elena was grateful. She didn't want Lily to see her like this, raw and terrified and suspended between grief and possibility. Miss Torres, Mr. Webb, Dr. Patel finally called them into her office. Her expression was carefully neutral, the practiced face of someone who delivered life-changing news regularly. I've reviewed the test results and consulted with the transplant team. David's heart is a compatible match for Lily. The tissue typing, the antibodies, the size, everything aligns. I've never seen such a perfect match between unrelated individuals. If Mr. Webb decides to proceed with the organ donation, we could schedule the surgery within 48 hours. Elena couldn't breathe. The room seemed to spin, but this time it wasn't from hunger or exhaustion. It was from the weight of a miracle she didn't deserve. A second chance for her daughter bought with another family's devastating loss. There's something else, Dr. Patel continued gently. Miss Torres, you need treatment immediately. We'd like to admit you overnight, get fluids and nutrients into your system. You can't take care of Lily if you collapse again. And if the surgery proceeds, your daughter will need you to be strong for her recovery. I'll make sure she gets the care she needs, Marcus said quietly. Whatever it costs. Elena turned to him, tears streaming down her face. Why are you doing this? You don't owe us anything. Your son, God, your son is lying in a hospital bed and you're here helping strangers instead of being with him. Marcus's voice was raw when he answered. I've been sitting in David's room for 2 weeks, holding his hand and begging him to come back to me. But he's gone. I know he's gone. I've known it since the doctors first said there was no brain activity, but I couldn't accept it because accepting it meant letting him go forever. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. Then I met you. I saw a mother willing to kill herself to save her child. I saw that same fierce, selfless love that David's mother had, that my son had. And I realized that David would hate what I've been doing. He checked that donor box because he wanted to help people. He wanted his life to mean something. And here I've been, keeping him on machines because I'm too much of a coward to honor his wishes. You're not a coward, Elena whispered. You're a father who loves his son. So are you a mother who loves her daughter, Marcus said. And you deserve a miracle. Lily deserves a miracle. Maybe David's purpose was always to save her. Maybe that's why I walked into that diner today. Maybe that's why I was there to catch you when you fell. Have you ever faced an impossible decision like this? Have you ever had to choose between holding on and letting go? Share your thoughts in the comments. Elena thought about all the times she'd prayed for a donor, begged God or the universe or whatever was out there to save her daughter. She'd never thought about the other side of that prayer, the family that would have to lose someone for her to gain, the grief that would buy her daughter's life. I can't ask you to do this, she said. I can't let you make this decision because of me. You're not asking, Marcus said firmly. I'm offering. And it's not just because of you, it's because of David. Because I finally understand that letting him go isn't losing him, it's setting him free to do what he always wanted. To be someone's hero, to save a life. He stood up and turned to Dr. Patel. I want to proceed with the organ donation. Please tell the transplant team to prepare. Dr. Patel nodded, her professional mask slipping to show profound compassion. I'll make the arrangements. Mr. Webb, I'm so sorry for your loss. And Miss Torres, we're going to take care of both you and Lily. I promise. After the doctor left, Marcus and Elena sat in silence. There were no words big enough for what had just happened. No way to express the tangled mess of gratitude and grief and hope and sorrow that filled the space between them. Finally, Marcus spoke. Will you tell me about Lily? I'd like to know about the girl who's going to carry my son's heart. So Elena told him. She told him about Lily's love of butterflies and how she wanted to be a teacher when she grew up. She told him about the way Lily hummed while she drew pictures and how she always shared her lunch with the stray cat behind their building. She told him about the day the doctors first said Lily's heart was failing and how her daughter had comforted her instead of the other way around. And Marcus told her about David, about his soccer games and his terrible jokes and his dream of becoming a doctor. He told her about the time David had organized a food drive at school and personally delivered meals to homeless families. He told her about the boy who'd been too good for this world and who would live on in Lily's chest. By the time they finished talking, both of their faces were wet with tears, but something had shifted. They weren't strangers anymore. They were two people bound together by love and loss, and the fragile thread of hope that sometimes miracles do happen. The next 48 hours passed in a haze of preparation and paperwork and prayers. Elena was admitted to the hospital and given IV fluids and nutrition. Martha and the crew from the diner brought flowers and cards and promised to handle everything at work. Rosa moved into Elena's tiny room above the laundromat so she'd be there when Lily came home. And Marcus arranged everything else, the best surgical team, private rooms, counselors to help Lily understand what was happening. They explained it to Lily together. Marcus wanted to be there, wanted her to know who David was and why he was giving her this gift. They sat in Lily's hospital room with its cheerful wall paintings of clouds and rainbows, and they told her about the brave boy who'd made a choice to be an organ donor. Lily listened with her serious, wise eyes, and when they finished, she asked if she could write David a letter. "He can't read it anymore, sweetheart," Elena said gently. "I know," Lily said, "but maybe his heart will remember. Maybe when it's inside me, it'll know that I'm grateful." Marcus had to leave the room. Elena found him in the hallway, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. She put her arms around him and let him cry for the son he was losing and the girl he was saving. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for giving my daughter a future." "Thank you for giving David's life meaning," Marcus said into her shoulder. "Thank you for helping me be brave enough to let him go." The morning of the surgery arrived too quickly. Elena had been medically cleared. Dr. Harrison had worked overtime to stabilize her health enough that she could be there for Lily's recovery. She walked beside Lily's gurney as they wheeled her to the operating room, holding her daughter's small hand and telling her how much she loved her. "I'm not scared." "Mama," Lily said, and somehow Elena believed her. Her daughter had always been the brave one. "I'm going to take good care of David's heart." "I promise. I know you will, baby." They let Elena kiss Lily's forehead one more time before the doors to the OR closed. Then she walked to the waiting room where Marcus was standing by the window, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. He'd spent the night saying goodbye to David, holding his son's hand one last time before the organ recovery surgery. Elena couldn't imagine his pain, but she could honor it. "David's in surgery now," Marcus said without turning around. "They're preparing the heart for transplant. Dr. Patel said the operation should take about 4 hours. 4 hours to wait. 4 hours to hope and pray and try not to think about all the things that could go wrong." Elena sat down in one of the plastic chairs and Marcus sat beside her. The waiting room slowly filled with other people. Martha from the diner, Rosa with her prayer beads, some of the regular customers who'd become family over the years. Marcus's driver brought coffee and breakfast that no one could eat. And through it all, Elena and Marcus sat together. Two parents who'd found each other in the darkest moment of their lives. 3 hours and 47 minutes later, Dr. Patel emerged from the surgical suite. She was still in her scrubs, her surgical cap in her hand. Elena couldn't read her expression. The world seemed to stop spinning as she waited for the doctor to speak. "The surgery was successful," Dr. Patel said, and Elena felt her knees give out. Marcus caught her, held her up. "Lily's new heart is beating strong and healthy. We'll keep her in the ICU for the next several days to monitor for rejection, but all the early signs are excellent. She's going to be okay." Elena couldn't speak through her tears. People were hugging her, congratulating her, crying with her. But through it all, she kept her eyes on Marcus. He was smiling, a real smile for the first time since she'd met him, but his eyes were full of tears. "David saved her," he whispered. "My boy saved her." "He did," Elena said, pulling Marcus into a fierce hug. "He absolutely did. And I'm going to make sure Lily knows him. I'm going to tell her about the amazing boy who gave her a second chance at life. She'll know his name, his story, his kindness. David's going to live on in her, not just his heart, but his memory. If you've been moved by this story, if you've felt the weight of their sacrifice and the joy of their hope, please subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming tales that celebrate the power of compassion and second chances." They let Elena see Lily 2 hours later. Her daughter looked so small in the ICU bed, surrounded by machines and monitors, a bandage across her chest where they'd opened her up to place David's heart inside. But her cheeks had color for the first time in months. Her breathing was steady and strong. The monitors showed a healthy heart rhythm, a 17-year-old boy's heart now beating in an 11-year-old girl's chest, giving her the life she deserved. "Hey, baby girl," Elena whispered, kissing her daughter's forehead. "You did so good. So good." Lily's eyes fluttered open, cloudy with medication but aware. "Mama, did it work?" "It worked, sweetheart. You have a new heart and it's perfect. Is Mr. Marcus here?" Lily asked. "I want to thank him." Marcus stepped forward, his eyes red-rimmed but his smile genuine. "I'm here, Lily." "Thank you for letting David save me," Lily whispered. "I promise I'll do good things. I promise his heart won't be wasted." Marcus took her small hand in his. "I know you will, sweetheart. I know you will." 6 months later, Elena stood in the doorway of the diner and watched the spring sunshine paint gold across the checkered floor. Everything looked the same as it had the day she'd collapsed. The worn vinyl booths, the ancient coffee maker, the menu board with its faded specials. But everything was different, too. She was different. The world was different. Lily was different. Her daughter was at school right now, probably running around at recess with her friends. Actually running, for the first time in years. Her doctors called it miraculous, how well she'd adapted to the transplant. Her body had accepted David's heart with no complications, no rejection episodes, nothing but smooth healing and growing strength. She was gaining weight, growing taller, laughing louder. She was becoming the child she was always meant to be. Elena had cut back to normal hours at the diner. Marcus had helped with the medical bills, all of them despite her protests, and had set up a trust fund for Lily's future. But more than the money, he'd given them something more precious. He'd become family. He came to Lily's school concerts and soccer games. He taught her to play chess and told her stories about David. He'd even helped them move into a small house with a yard where Lily could plant the butterfly garden she'd always dreamed of. The door chimed, and Marcus walked in. He came every Tuesday for lunch, sitting in the same corner booth where he'd been sitting the day Elena's life had changed. "The usual?" she asked with a smile. "Actually, I was hoping you might join me," he said. "If you can take a break." Elena poured 2 coffees and slid into the booth across from him. They'd done this dozens of times over the past months, shared meals and conversations, and the comfortable silence of people who'd been through something profound together. He told her about his grief counseling, about learning to live with the loss of David, while celebrating the life his son had saved. She'd told him about her own therapy, about processing the guilt of being grateful for a gift that came at such a terrible cost. "I have something for you," Marcus said, pulling a small box from his jacket pocket. Inside was a silver pendant on a delicate chain. "It's a butterfly. Lily told me they were your favorite. She said you used to tell her that butterflies were proof that beautiful things could come from dark places." Elena's eyes filled with tears as she held the necklace. She remembered that? I used to tell her that story when she was little, when the doctors first found the heart condition. I'd tell her about caterpillars going into cocoons and coming out transformed. "She remembers everything you taught her," Marcus said. "All the love, all the strength, all the hope you gave her when you were barely holding on yourself. You saved her life long before David's heart did. You kept her alive with sheer force of will and love. We both saved her," Elena said softly. "Your courage and my stubbornness. David's gift and Lily's fighting spirit. We're all in this together now." Marcus nodded, and they sat in companionable silence for a moment. Then he said, "I've been thinking about starting a foundation. Something to help families facing transplants, to cover medical costs and provide support. I'd like to name it after David, and I'd like you to help me run it." Elena looked up, surprised. "Me?" "Marcus, I don't know anything about running a foundation." "You know what it's like to be on the other side," Marcus said. "You know what families need when they're desperate and scared and out of options. That's more valuable than any business degree. We could help people, Elena. We could turn our story into something that changes lives." It was overwhelming, the thought of it. But as Elena looked at this man, who'd become so important to her and Lily, who'd turned his deepest loss into a way to help others, she felt something shift inside her. Maybe that's what healing looked like. Not forgetting the pain, but transforming it into purpose. Not moving on from the people we'd lost, but carrying them forward in how we chose to live. "Okay," she said. "Let's do it. Let's make David's legacy something beautiful." They spent the next hour planning and dreaming and imagining all the ways they could help. When Elena finally had to get back to work, Marcus caught her hand. "Thank you," he said, "for letting me be part of Lily's life. For letting me be part of your life. After I lost David, I thought I'd lost everything. But you two gave me a reason to keep going. You gave me hope. You gave us more than hope," Elena said. "You gave us a future." That evening, Elena picked Lily up from school and they walked to the park near their new house. Lily ran ahead, her backpack bouncing, her laughter bright and clear in the spring air. Elena watched her daughter chase butterflies through the grass, her hands outstretched, her face glowing with joy and health and life. In her chest, David's heart beat steady and strong, keeping time with every skip and jump and burst of exuberant energy. Elena touched the butterfly pendant at her throat and thought about transformations. About how the darkest cocoons could produce the most brilliant wings. About how loss and hope could exist in the same breath, in the same heart. About how a chance meeting in a small diner could change everything. She thought about Marcus, about the friendship they'd built from shared grief and gratitude. She thought about David, the boy she'd never met, but who she'd love forever because he'd given her daughter life. She thought about all the families they'd helped through the foundation. All the other Lilies and Davids whose stories were just beginning. And she thought about herself, the exhausted, desperate woman who'd collapsed on a diner floor 6 months ago. She barely recognized that version of herself now. She'd learned to accept help, to share her burdens, to believe in miracles again. She'd learned that sometimes falling down was the only way to be lifted up, that sometimes the people we least expect become the ones we need most. Lily ran back to her, breathless and beaming. "Mama, did you see?" "I almost caught one." "I saw, baby." "Keep trying. You'll catch your butterfly." And as they walked home together, Elena realized she already had. They both had. In the kindness of strangers who became family, in the courage to let go and hold on at the same time, in the extraordinary gift of an ordinary life made precious by second chances, they'd caught their miracle. And they'd spend the rest of their days honoring it, protecting it, and helping others find their own. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the power of compassion and sacrifice and hope, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment sharing your thoughts or your own experiences, and subscribe to our channel for more stories that celebrate the beauty of the human spirit. Thank you for joining us on this journey. May you find your own butterflies wherever life takes you.